I had what I'm convinced was a Bigfoot experience in Texas while solo camping at LBJ National Grasslands near Decatur. I'd planned this camp out for a couple of weeks and was excited to go out and do what some of my YouTube favorites did. I chose midweek, camping in early November of 2023 as the weather forecast was favorable, and I was off work for a few days. I also figured that there wouldn't be a crowd at this particular time, so I gathered my gear into totes, packed everything I had into my 2018 Tacoma, and my 5x10 square drop camper. You heard that right. Yeah, it's a square drop because it's got a square shape on the front of it. I located a nice site in a remote area where there's woods, game trails, small ponds, and a small lake nearby. Truly, this was an ideal camp. The weather was perfect, in the 70s, and hardly a cloud in the sky. I backed the camper into the turnout between a cluster of brush and trees, unhitched it, leveled the camper, and deployed the stabilizing jacks on each corner. I set up my small toilet tent outhouse, table with cookware, stove and fuel, food goods, and an ice chest. I then tied 120 feet of small battery-powered LED alternating pattern lights for later that evening, just for a little ambiance. I connected the camper lights to my portable power station. Now, when I say camper lights, I'm referring to the lights that operate on the outside of the camper that are built into the camper and inside the camper. It also runs my little fan that's up in the ceiling as well. So I got that all hooked up, set up my camp chair and solo stove. It's a portable fire pit. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. The evening was going exactly as planned. I had solitude, silence, a nice dinner, coffee, and a nice fire. After cleaning up, I sat relaxing in my camp chair and sipping a nicely doctored up cup of coffee to watch the stars. And my fire was burning down to glowing embers. With my coffee gone and me feeling a little tired and sleepy, caffeine doesn't keep me awake, by the way, anymore, I decided to call it a night. It was the perfect solo camp out, and I was looking forward to some great sleep. I got out of my camp chair to get into the camper, and just as I was about to go to the door, I heard a very loud and bizarre scream like roar, such as I had never heard in all my days of 64 years on this planet. It was extremely strange. It gave me pause, and I stood and listened for what seemed like a good 10 seconds as it filled the air. The strangest part, even though I had never heard anything like it, is it didn't strike a note of fear in me yet. I filed through my memory bank of different animals that roamed the area. It certainly didn't fit the bill of any of them. It was almost like a human, but way too loud. And there was a staccato-like quality to it, and it was as though multiple sounds exited the same throat. Loud, powerful, almost echoing across the grasslands. I stood there listening and wondered what it could possibly be. The coyotes in the area went crazy, and as if in response, with lots of yipping and howling. I thought at first maybe it was a cougar, but that only lasted a couple of seconds there, and I knew at that point it was no cougar. I continued to replay the sound in my head a few more times, given that it was so incredibly strange. After the coyotes stopped yipping and howling, the area was quiet as could be once again. I got my flashlight and camera, and I video recorded the perimeter of my camp, but I didn't even consider that it might be something out of the ordinary, for lack of a better description. So I climbed into the camper and locked myself in. There's a couple of locks on each of the insides of the door. I just am kind of hip on extra security, always have been. Kind of got that from my dad. And I watched a downloaded movie since I had no internet signal out there at all. It had been maybe 15 or 20 minutes. The lights in the camper were out, except for my overhead dimmer light. I had curtains on each of my windows, motion sensing solar lights sitting on the outside of each one of them. Each one of those lights with 2,000 lumens apiece. So if anything walked outside of those windows, those lights would shine up the entire woods nearby, I should say. I could see the small LED lights flickering in patterns just outside. I had my 10mm handgun with me, and believe it or not, my AR-15 was laying up against the wall of the camper. I usually bring weapons with me when I go camping for protection, not because of something unusual, bizarre, or out of this world, but because there are evil people in the world. That's the entire reason I protect myself. Suddenly, and without warning, what sounded like a decent-sized rock hit the outside of my camper. Immediately, I was on high alert because I knew that I was out in the middle of nowhere and I hadn't seen a soul all day long. But it took a hand to throw a rock. I heard no noise. There was silence outside. There were no trees above my camper, so it couldn't have been anything falling from a tree. My mind was racing as I put my phone down and picked up my handgun. It was completely quiet as I listened, almost too quiet. There were no lights from any cars or flashlights that I could detect. Wham! A second projectile hit the roof of the camper, and it was larger than the first. My alertness turned to fear as I put two and two together. The odd scream roar that I'd heard and the rock throwing. Immediately I thought, Sasquatch. What? Why did that term come into my mind? Then I remembered watching some Bigfoot documentaries in the past and recalled people talking about the roaring, screaming sounds that these beings can make, and that rock throwing is a common behavior of such beings. My fear level then rose to new heights that I didn't know were possible. I realized I was not able to contact anyone. I clutched my handgun and was at the ready, but was blind to what was happening outside. I pondered making a run for my truck, but was unsure of where this being might be. I was beating myself up over how stupid it was to try to solo camp with no way to communicate with anyone. At the same time, I couldn't process the fact that I was dealing with a nightmare scenario. A monster I was certain that at any moment would come crashing through my camper to pull me out and rip me apart. Scenario after scenario played through my fear-plagued mind as I waited with white knuckles, clutching my gun for the next attack. I didn't know what to do. I was a sitting duck. I began to fervently pray to the Lord. The first thing that came to my mind was the Lord's Prayer, and I fervently prayed it. My fearful anticipation went on for hours. It was after 1 a.m., and I decided to take an anti-anxiety medication that I had on hand to help me sleep. But this time I needed it to calm my nerves. It was scary just to move to the other side of the camper to get my med kit and turn on a light. I took the pill and went back to my defensive position, praying the medicine worked quickly. After about an hour, I could feel the edge coming off a little, and I actually, and without warning, drifted off to sleep. That, I guess, was kind of a blessing and a curse by looking back on it, because if I had been attacked, I would have been completely out of it. I woke again about 5 a.m. The medicine had basically worn off. I grabbed my gun and was at the ready, and the sun finally came up. As it got brighter, my hope also got brighter that maybe I would live to see another day. As soon as it got light and I felt more comfortable, I carefully and quietly exited the camper, peeking out the door to make sure there was nothing waiting for me on the other side. But I threw all of my gear into the truck, in the camper, got the stabilizer jacks open, hooked up, and got out of there. Well, since that time, I've mulled that situation, that experience over and over and over, thousands of times in my mind. I can conclude, I can't prove it, but I have heard of other people who've had testimonies similar to mine, that when they had called on the name of Jesus or they had prayed, their experiences with, if you want to call them these Sasquatch-like beings, ended. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. It happened, and thankfully my wife still loves me and has stayed with me through all this craziness. Unfortunately for me, I've become addicted to researching this topic since that event occurred, and I do believe that they are real, these beings, whatever they are. There's thousands upon thousands of people who've had these experiences, and I just don't think that many people are lying. So there it is, and I've saved a little bit of the video here for you to see of what things looked like outside the camp. I hope you liked that. And if you'd like to subscribe to my channel, it doesn't cost you anything. Just hit the old subscribe button, and thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. It's no big deal to me. It's just the way it is. Y'all have a blessed day. Thanks for listening.